Hello and welcome to another Econelastic video with me, Joe.
And me, Andrew.
So in a previous video, we introduced the circular flow of income model. So recommend going and checking that out first.
But in short, the circular flow model shows how national income can change as a result of changes in the flows.
The way we quantify national income or output is by measuring GDP, which stands for gross domestic product.
So the aim of today's video is for you to understand some of the ways that GDP can be measured and some of the difficulties that can occur when trying to compare GDP of different countries.
So GDP can be defined as the value of output produced by a country over the last 12 months.
And there are three ways of measuring this, and all three ways should result in the exact same figure.
So the first method is the product method. So we add up all the value of the goods and services produced in that country. So some of the examples could be a Rolls-Royce engine, a plumber fixing a tap, a barber cutting a person's hair, or you go into the shop to buy some clothes.
By producing goods and services, firms obviously generate income for households, i.e. employees, shareholders, and this comes in the form of wages, salaries, dividends, etc.
So Andrew, this leads us on nicely to our second method, which is the income method. Simply add all these incomes up, including profits, interest, and rent as well.
So assuming in a simplified circular flow, everything that is produced is sold, the value of what is sold must be the value of what is produced.
Therefore, the third method is what is known as the expenditure method. This then measures the sale value on everything that has been produced, i.e. what households spend on goods and services.
As mentioned previously, these three methods, when calculated, should all yield the same result. That is, national product is equal to national income is equal to national expenditure.
So now we've calculated GDP, we would want to analyse GDP from one year to another year, but this means we have to take inflation into account.
For example, if national income increased by 10% this year, but prices also increased by 10%, there has been no real increase in income, i.e. you are no better off.
Which is exactly what we're seeing right now of June 2022. So this leads us on to a very important distinction between real GDP and nominal GDP, where nominal GDP is measured in today's prices, therefore it does not take into account of inflation.
Logically, real GDP is the opposite. It measures GDP in prices that ruled in the base year. For example, if in 1990, Rolls-Royce sold 10 engines, I have no idea how much they cost, but let's say £10,000 each, this obviously equates to £100,000. If then 5 years later, in 1995, they sold 8 engines, but at £13,000 a piece, this has a total value of £104,000.
So what Andrew's just suggested there is that Rolls-Royce output has gone from £100,000 to £104,000. So they've actually had an increase of £4,000. If, however, we use the base year of 1990 and multiply 8 engines sold in 1995 by the 1990 prices of £10,000, then actually we'd see a fall of £20,000, 8 times 10 basically. So you get a reduction actually in output of £20,000.
Put another way, price rises are not always enough to offset the decline in output.
So up to now, we've been discussing total GDP, but this does not tell the story for smaller countries' economies.
For this then, we need to use GDP per capita, which means per head. So if we take figures from 2017, the GDP per capita in the US was $60,000. In the UK, it was $45,000. In Singapore, it was $94,000, and in Qatar, it was $128,000 per capita.
So if you go and look at the 2017 figures of total GDP, the US and the UK are higher both than Singapore and Qatar.
Yeah.
However, as Andrew's just gone through, the GDP per capita of these countries are higher. So per person, they are actually better off.
So we rewind just slightly. You'll remember that we can't compare GDP in the present day to a past year without converting to base year prices.
Equally, you can't compare a GDP of one country to another country without converting to a common currency.
However, it's not even as simple as that, because different currencies have different purchasing power within their own economies.
So in an ideal world, £1 exchanges for €1.50. So an example that students should be able to relate to quite easily, and that is a meal deal. And let's say that meal deal is £3.
So at the exchange rate that Joe outlined, £1 for €1.50, would the same £3 meal deal in the UK cost €4.50 in Europe, i.e. you get the same sandwich, crisps and a drink? Well, in some parts, it may be cheaper than that, and in other parts, it may well be more expensive than that.
So to deal with this issue, GDP is converted to a common currency, which is known as the purchasing power parity rate.
Simply put, it is a rate of exchange that means a given amount of money will buy a given amount of goods after exchanging to the currency of the other country. So you should now know how to define GDP,
how to measure GDP,
the difference between real GDP and nominal GDP,
and the aim of the purchasing power parity rate. Thanks for watching our Econelastic videos. Please check out our other YouTube videos on a range of economic topics. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
Please also check out our website at econelastic.com. The link will be in the description for you. This is where you'll find our step-by-step dissertation writing guide, which is suitable not just for economics, but for a whole host of degree subjects. And it's where you can also book us personally for 2-to-1 tutoring sessions.
See you in the next video.